in us. However, good to see many familiar faces and anyone who is joining us for the first time. I'm Gaurav Yadav. Good to see you all. I am able to see few familiar faces as well, but then for them, I'm an old face with a new t-shirt, that's it. But having said this, to everyone who is joining in from different part of the country, thank you for joining in. What we've been doing at IPN is morely known to most of us, of you, yet for the sake of people who are joining us for the first time. At IPN, since the COVID challenge, we've been trying to, if I may say, help school leaders navigate these challenging times. I'm trying my bit along with the team. I'm really not saying that I'm doing the best or this is the only thing you can do through our platform for that matter. But what we've really understood is that there is a lot of transition which is going on. We all know these are uncertain times. And as I said, the only thing we can do least for ourselves is to be supportive to each other. You have my back. If I have your back, that's the least thing we can do, right? So that's what we are trying to do under IPN. IPN broadly works under three pillars. It's obviously established 4 years ago. We work on three critical pillars, what we believe in. We wanted to add fourth more, but let me tell you first what are the three pillars of IPN. The three pillars are, one is leadership development, which is why this session, if you see, this is only for principals or head of schools. This is not for teachers for now. After that, we really believe, and that's my own understanding of the subject matter, that no matter how much of our effort we do on the principals, we also enable our teachers. So teacher empowerment is a second core theme of IPN. And third, as of now, as I said, though it's not been really worked upon, but I personally believe student entrepreneurship is a very integral part of our schooling system. We will have to create more job creators rather than job seekers. So entrepreneurship, enterprising nature, innovation at the classroom level should be the hallmark of the next set of schools in India. I'm being an entrepreneur myself. I'm a first generation entrepreneur. My family's entire family is of civil servants. But having said this, I chose my own path and here I am at. So in this very sequence, we've been doing a lot of stuff, really not the time to go through there. I will send, so IPN is www.ipnindia.in. You will love to go and explore a little more. But having said this, I shared this purely because there are a lot of people who've been joining us and they ask me this question, Gauravji, what are we doing? What is the mission, vision, all that? So that is there. So anyone who is joining in for the first time, possibly this is a little brief introduction on IPN. Now, IPN Leadership's lesson series, which we are doing, this is actually the second episode of ours. And I should say this with you with a lot of confidence, if I may say, that we've been actually able to work out a series of at least 10 leaders already in our place. And we've got some brilliant speakers, or I would say people with a lot of body of work behind them. So this is not for namesake. This is largely for generally helping out leaders who want to evolve from the stage where they are right now. So I'm sure everyone here is a leader in their own regard. So while you are a principal, you're actually a leader in any which way. But I believe we all are eternal learners. So there's always a room for improvement, right? So these sessions are actually intended to talk about or share from few very distinguished leaders from the schooling fraternity, if I may say. Okay. So we had Mrs. Vanita Opal in our inaugural session of leadership lessons from school leaders. And she needs no introduction. What a lovely session we had with her. She is the principal, or in fact, the director of the British School in New Delhi, right? And I'm so glad that in the second session, which we have today, I'm bringing to you a very, very distinguished entrepreneur, if I would say an edupreneur. He's with us very much. I was, in fact, talking to him 20 minutes ago. So he's very much, however, I will do a formal introduction to him. We've been already sharing details about his body of work and more than that, who is he. But yet, before we start this, let me quickly set a little context around this and then we will dive into this. It's already 4:05. This is the right time we really start this, right? So number one, as I said, after Vanita Opal, I wanted to bring in a leader who comes from the tier 2 fold, number one. Because majority of IPN members come from the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Now, you know, at one level, you can get a perspective from someone who's at Delhi or a Bombay, but I firmly believe there has to be a lot of contextual relevance. What happens in my place is a very, very different ball game altogether, right? So having said this, Mr. Anirudh Gupta, who is with us, in fact, at this moment as well, is an environmental engineer, number one, a gentleman who really took up a very senior post at a very young age of 21. He was just 21 in 97 when he became the CEO for circumstances little unknown to us. Having said this, at very young age, he became the CEO of his enterprise, which is, as I said, they are predominantly based in Punjab, tier 2, tier 3, doing wonderful job. And I think we all will be joining in terms of congratulating him because he very much can listen to what we are saying. He is, in fact, day before yesterday, appointed as the chairman of PhD Chamber of Commerce Education Committee. So he's been appointed the chairman of the Education Committee, which will be looking after the entire development of education, not only just school education, but the complete higher education for the state of Punjab. Right? So that's a huge, if I may say, someone who's coming from a tier 2 context. So then it really talks volume about the sort of work he has done as a leader. So when I spoke to him actually 14 to 15 days ago, and that was my first interaction with Mr. Anirudh, it was a fantastic conversation. It was my first conversation with him. And I could really gather that his experiences are not superficial. He has really worked on ground and he has really, if I may say, walked the talk. So therefore, though he was supposed to join us at the IPN virtual conclave as well, many of you attended IPN virtual conclave. So for those who did not attend, we hosted a day-long conclave on the 2nd of May, earlier this month, which was attended by 230 odd school leaders. And I had invited him, but for some reasons he could not attend those sessions. So I had then requested him to be my guest for this session. Okay, so I look forward to this conversation, a very dynamic CEO, if I may say, who's worked at the grassroots level. And I personally believe this session will go a long way in terms of adding to our repository of leadership, what we can gain out of his experience. That is the core intention of this discussion largely. We will divide this into 2 halves, which we have always done it this way. First half is that I'll be asking few questions. So in order to set the context with and make him a little more comfortable with us at the IPN, because he's joining us for the first time at IPN. After that, which is for the initial 20 to 25 odd minutes, after that, we'll straight dive into a major set of Q&As. Now, please understand this, as I've told you already, there is no chat box, okay? Which means if we have to get into the questioning mode, this is how we have to do. Thumbs up. Let's try thumbs up. Let me see how many thumbs up can I get. No, not these ones. On the virtual one. Virtual one. Virtual one. This one, guys. Yes, yes, yes. So now you're learning trick of the trade, right? Good job. Good job. You guys are learning fast. Okay. So when we have to ask a question, this is my ally with you guys. Okay. Obviously, I'm going to unmute you all after, and then you can ask your question yourself. Fair enough. Anirudhji, you there, Anirudhji? I'm sure if you can unmute, possibly you will not be able to unmute yourself, but let me just figure out where are you. So now we have almost 228 participants. So then we have to navigate and figure out where Anirudhji. Anirudhji, you're not around? Give me a moment, right? Let me just navigate. Where is he? Can anyone see where Anirudh by any chance? Because I'm getting a very split view in front of me. Hold on. Anuji, can you listen to? Yeah, you're there. Aja. Am I audible to you, Anuji? You can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, Gaurav, I'm there.
Yeah. Now I can see you. Good. I hope you were listening to what I was saying. I made a very elaborative speech.
Yeah, I could.
So welcome. Welcome, and good to have you with us. Lovely to have you with us. In fact, so we will straight dive into this, Anirudh, and we have almost, as I said, 200 plus participants. These are all school leaders, members of IPN community. I've already made a brief introduction of yours. So if you allow me, we can dive into the question, or if you have to say anything, please. Yeah.
No, first of all, at the outset, let me thank you, Gaurav, for inviting me here to this forum today. And to all the participants, I want to wish Eid Mubarak. And it's a great pleasure to be, amidst all of you today. So thank you very much, Gaurav. You are doing some phenomenal work in the field of education. Keep it up, and I'm really looking.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you very much. So, Anuji, my first question, which is a very fundamental question, because let me share this with the audience at a larger level, that the DCM group of schools is actually established pre-independence. So it's not established in the year 1946. So this is a very, very legacy-led group for that matter. In the year 1997 is when Mr. Anirudh Gupta became the CEO or the head of the institution. But before that, obviously, there was a lot of body of work going on. So my question, Anirudh, is what have been the core tenets, if I may say, and or ethos which have kept the group going for such a long period, if I may say? That will be a very great learning. Yeah.
Thank you, Gaurav. You'll be happy to know DCM group, when the first school, first of the series was established in 1946.
Correct.
It was amongst the first privately managed school in India.
Okay.
Before us, there were institutions which were being run by the missionaries, set up by the British in all the stations, or there were schools which were being run by the municipalities or the social or religious trust.
Correct.
So, if we talk about the private school management, I think we were amongst the first ones in India.
Okay.
So, coming to the ethos, you see, right from the very beginning, since we are located very close to the border, I mean, we are just 6 or 7 kilometers from the international Pakistan border right now.
Oh, okay.
When the school was established, the independence had not taken place. But in 1947, suddenly overnight this place became a border.
Okay.
And a country which is a little hostile towards us. So we have seen terrorism, we have seen 1965, 1971 Indo-Pak wars, we have seen a lot of action, we have seen floods. So, I mean, however, having faced all those situations, all the challenges of being in such a place, so why we not only survived, we kept growing was one, because of our, values, the values, which were imbibed into the system by the founders, never say die, very, very strongly, a resolute, approach towards everything. Fine. And another thing, we didn't kind of commercialized ourselves, in totality. Because I'm happy to share that the visitors book of our school, if anybody is keen or you get a chance to visit us sometime, it has been maintained since 1947.
Okay.
So the first page of the visitors book of our school was, remarks were written by the Deputy Commissioner of Firozpur in 1947. And since 1947, all the dignitaries, parents, people of eminence like President of India, Prime Ministers, Governors, Chief Ministers, bureaucrats. So we have maintained our visitors book right till date since 1947.
Okay.
So in those good old times, the kind of work the school did in 40s, 50s, 60s. So that is all recorded in our visitors book.
Okay.
Fine. I can, just a brief testimony to what I'm saying, that we didn't commercialize ourselves. In 1948, there was a deputy commissioner called Gyan Singh Kahlo.
Okay.
He was father-in-law of our present Chief Minister, Captain Amrinder Singh. He was an ICS officer who later became the Chief Secretary also. So in our visitor's book, on an official D or letter of a district magistrate, he has written the total fee collection of the school is 1,000 rupees, whereas the expenditure is more than 1,200. Fine. So this was what was happening in 1948.
Okay.
And 200 rupees at that point of time, the school management was chipping, which by now is almost 2 CR.
Correct.
Fine.
Correct.
So, I mean, we have been able to continue with, those ethos, those principles. That is why over the period of more than last 7 decades, we've not been able to sustain ourselves. We've been, growing at a very, very steady, if not a very, phenomenally great pace, because we were never into an expansion spree.
Okay.
I mean, we were never into that we want to open more and more schools. Fine.
Okay.
So I think those principles that never say die approach, serving, actually serving the people for the call of education. Fine. Totally focused, trying to improve not only quantity but total focus on quality. What we are talking now these days, smart classrooms, experiential learning, all those things, you'll be happy to know. Ours was the first school which introduced projectors in the classroom. And I'm talking of 70s. We had imported projectors from Germany that time.
Okay.
Later in early 80s, we imported computers from Taiwan. Fine, Commodore computers.
Okay.
So what we are talking now of experiential learning, of like technology. So we have been pioneers, in all these areas, and we have experimented. We have burnt our fingers several times. So, but one thing was there that no matter what comes your way, no matter whatever vicissitudes or hardships or challenges, you have to keep forging ahead. With renewed energy and renewed spirit every day, and forge ahead in the right direction. Your direction has to be, is very important. The speed might vary. So we were very focused that we are here to provide quality education to the people of this area, and we never, digressed or diverted from that, cause. So that is what which has sustained us for the last 75 years. So we are completing our 75 years in 2021.
Correct.
So, yeah.
No, absolutely. Which is why actually I brought this question up, because in current context, Anirudh, if you look at it, what is the biggest challenge we are facing as an educationalist? If really I have to pinpoint it out, is very simple. That it is one thing to create an infrastructure or a building for that matter. It is very different ball game to run it. I mean, that's the way I see it. I can give you 100 such buildings which I see right now empty. I go from, so I was born and brought up in a small town called Jhansi, and when I go from Lucknow, because I stay in Lucknow now, and when I have to go to Jhansi, on my way to Jhansi, I see 100 schools which are lying empty. They're not running, because I feel there's some skill set needed to run a school, and run it for 7 decades is a hallmark figure, if I may say, right? So which you have answered well. What I as I said, I will keep coming back to these questions, because see, this is what leadership for me is. अगर आप चाहे कुछ भी
Gaurav, I'd like to add here.
बोलिए, please.
Creating an infrastructure or raising an institution, in terms of construction, in terms of having a very luxurious kind of a setup in place. Anybody having money can do that.
Precisely.
You have to outsource it. I mean, you can hire the best of the architects, the best of contractors, and the interior designers.
Correct.
So school is not just about the infrastructure. It's more of a passion-driven approach.
Absolutely.
And while I was talking about the commercial aspect, we all understand it takes a whole lot of money to create schools these days.
Correct.
I mean, earlier the expectations were very less.
Correct.
Now, every parent is expecting, with a single child and 2-child norm, where they're in a position to spend also. So every parent expects all kinds of facilities, from school being air conditioned to smart classrooms to the best of security, the best of housekeeping, the whatnot. I mean, the expectation level is going a notch higher every passing day.
Absolutely.
So I mean, with this kind of increasing expectations, there's a whole lot of amount of funding and effort which goes into constructing or raising a school.
Correct.
I think a good school will cost you not less than 30-40 CR these days, maybe more than that. Absolutely. However, having said that, it's very important to understand, and we see for the last few years, there'll be a whole lot of activism going around. There's a negative perception about schools in the media, in the with the policy makers, and every day the principals are spending less time in their office and they are spending more time in the legal affairs, in counseling, in talking to the parents, settling the thing down. So why is it happening? So we have to maintain a balance. Money is important because anybody who's invested that kind of a money will naturally like that, okay, at the end of the day, all the principals, management, if they are putting in effort, they deserve something at the end of the day. However, it has to be a balanced approach. If you focus on quality, if you focus on the kind of education which is required, the money will automatically come. The money has to be a byproduct. Right? So if we focus on money, we'll never be able to maintain quality, and it will trigger a whole lot of complications. Absolutely. So my advice to all the people, because a lot of people approach me with the idea of setting up schools.
Correct.
That please guide us, we want to set up a new school. Correct. And overnight in the last decade or so, we see a lot of schools mushrooming, not only tier A, B and C cities, we see private schools mushrooming even in the remote areas, in the villages. Correct. Right? So we all kinds of schools. So I think it's extremely important for us to understand that we can't just set up the school just purely for the commercial gain. It's not a profit and loss statement. We have to make a balance, and we have to, if we are providing quality, I mean, automatically, things will fall in place.
So मैं बस no, absolutely. तो पहली बात तो in complete agreement to what you are saying. In fact, I will just make two observations around it, and we'll go to the next question. Is that one is creating school or building school is one thing, and running a school of quality is a very different ball game altogether to me. I have seen in my own family, people have built a school, but then they've failed miserably in terms of running up a school. So these are very, I keep them separate, building a school, which is a job of an architecture and the guys who build the setup, but running or a soul of a school comes through educationalists and academicians, which I believe everyone needs to work out. So I'm absolutely with you. And the second part which you said is that a very fine balance is about how much to be commercially driven and how much to be driven by, if I may say, core ethos of running an institution of excellence, if I may say. One thing is to use these jargonized words, but then typically using them in your system is a very different ballgame altogether. So which is why actually I'm asking this question. I would have not asked this question, Anirudh Ji, to someone who was running a school for 5 years. It doesn't hold true for them. This holds true only for people who have been running schools for minimum of 20 years, if I may say. Otherwise, there's no relevance. You have not invested yourself enough to even answer this question, if I may say, right? So having said this, I'm happy that you are being appointed as the education committee chair, because the sort of philosophy you have should be driven down to the other people as well at the end of the day, right? So good. My second question is, one is you being at the helm of affairs, you are obviously leading it from the front. Just tell me, how do you get the sort of talent you need in a smaller town? Don't you think that is your biggest challenge?
Absolutely, Gaurav. And I'll tell you one thing. It's not about the smaller towns. I visit any part of the world. I might visit the most developed countries like America, UK, Australia, France, for that matter. This challenge is everywhere. Even in the best schools of India, the best universities and organizations of India, there's always a dearth of good quality human resource. Okay. So what you have to do is that you have to create them, you have to work on them. Okay. Unfortunately, a system of higher education in the teachers training area has, not been doing a great job. Right? So you have to envisage and you have to design and put in place your own mechanism and systems. For which it's very important you mentioned leading from the front.
Correct.
So in fact, my style of leadership is leading from the back. All right. I mean, in no invitation card, in no school functions, in no these high profile events, I even, allow them to make a mention of my name on the invitation card even.
Okay.
Fine. All right. You have to be like an engine who's pushing all the compartments, all the bogies from the back.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you should not end up becoming like a banyan tree beneath which nothing survives.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
not about me, myself. Fine.
Correct. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. So I'm coming to a very pointed question. So when you say that you develop them, how? What are, say, few practices which we do at DCM, which are unique?
There are two aspects, Gaurav. One is the giving them your trust, giving them your faith, making them believe in you, and all this trust, faith, believe. I mean, this is all mutual. Fine. You have to encourage them. You have to motivate them. You have to it's all about. I'm talking about. I'll talk about skills later on. I'll talk about just the feel of belonging to somebody or to some institution.
Correct.
Fine. So firstly, you have to invoke that. Working in a school is not a profession. It is all about passion. It's passion driven. Fine. So in this industry, it's schools. It is not just about marks. It is all about making a mark. Fine.
Yes.
So all the people who come into the schools, taking it just as any other profession, I think that they need to relook into. Fine. Secondly, as far as their training is concerned, firstly, you need to identify, every person brings along a different set of experience, a different set of knowledge and understanding.
Correct.
So you have to, very closely monitor, you have to conduct their appraisal, and you have to diagnose it and identify that who needs what kind of skills.
Correct.
I mean, if you are training 10 people in an area related to IT or technology, and out of those 10 people, 5 are already, BTech or MTech in computer science. I mean, so the entire effort will be futile. So you have to firstly understand and diagnose that who needs what kind of a training. Correct. They need training in technology or classroom management or psychological handling of the students. Who needs what kind of a training? And there has to be a very well structured, scientifically planned approach within the school on how to train them. How to impart the right kind of skills. So what is happening in the school scenario these days? Like we all know it's time of artificial intelligence. It's time of Internet of Things. It's time of virtual education. So unfortunately, most of the teachers, we are expecting something out of them, even from the school leaders, what they have not been formally trained for.
Absolutely.
Because when they have gone to the school, college or university, these things were not there. So this generation is like a cusp between, industrial revolution, 3 and, industrial revolution 4.0. Fine. So we have to, understand that what are the requirements, an IT teacher or a sports teacher or a subject teacher or anybody who is in an administrative role, like a school principal who has to manage more than 35 departments on a day-to-day basis, from security to transport to legal issues to examination to counseling the parents, the academic, the events, the everything, the transport. So I mean, being at the helm of affairs of the school, there's so much of administrative knack which is required, the understanding of various school operations required. So what we have to do, in fact, I had recommended the government of India, the skill ministry, that education should be another 12 skill sector. Like if you're looking for a school warden, a hostel warden for the school. So generally what we do, anybody who has done graduation, BCom, BE or BSc, we just recruit or appoint that person and then start training that person for the job of a hostel warden.
Okay.
So why there cannot be another skill sector where all these positions we have a specified well designed, training modules, and we get skilled manpower for our schools.
Okay.
In fact, we have even proposed the Institute of School Leadership. I mean, like what we see in some other countries, like generally we see the principals, they do attend, some capsule programs or training courses.
Correct.
But why can't be there a full-time 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year, a training course just to chisel out school leaders,
Absolutely.
a formalized training course.
Absolutely.
Right? So this is a time where I mean, this is an era of specialization.
Correct.
I mean, you cannot be, jack of all, master of none.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So you have to, set your expectations right. You have to do the, very thorough diagnosis, and then you have to design an in-house training system where everybody is getting the right kind of training, what they require. And then 1 day, 2 day workshop or training does not help. You need, it has to be a sustained effort. Right? It has to be a continuous effort till the time they are able to, absorb and, adopt all those skills and practices what we expect from them. So it's a combination of, motivation, trust, making them believe in yourself, making them, feel of belonging to the organization, making them understand the kind of work they are doing, how important that work is. And another thing, what I tell all the teachers, because generally what we hear and this thing is, it's not a very lucrative profession. The principals, teachers, and other stakeholders, they are not very well paid. So what I tell them that if we all believe that children are creation of the God, so God tells you that you take care of my children and I'll take care of yours.
Correct.
So I have yet to come across any teacher whose children are not doing well.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you might be a rich, affluent businessman, but if your children are not doing well and they are going off the tangent, I mean the entire money is
Useless.
not worth it.
Absolutely.
So as a passionate educator, as an effective teacher, as a dynamic school leader and principal, I think the biggest the bliss for all of us here is that automatically, because we are spending most of our time and effort for the other kids. So
Correct.
automatically, God takes care of our children, and if our children are doing well, I think, what else we can, ask for and think of.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think well said. Now, I have a couple of more questions, and after that, we'll go to Q&A largely. But these are questions now largely to do with, if I may say, your CEO hat. Because you're a CEO, you're a man of your numbers, you are a man of a P&L, balance sheet. What percentage of your, as per you, and I'm asking not for your group, but in general, what percentage of budget should be actually kept for training and development at a school level? So these are school leaders of ours, who I personally believe.
Right. So I will say, it is not that any fixed budget. You might keep it 5% or 10% or 15%.
Okay.
It has to be need based.
Okay.
Right. So from school to school, the quality and quantum of training required might differ. Okay. There might be a school who have almost 95% teachers or the people in various roles who are into the system for a very, very long time. Like we have teachers who've been working with us for the last 40 years, 30 years, 20 years. And there might be a relatively new school where most of the people, the school is new, the teachers are new, not only new to the school.
No, let me, Anuji, let me rephrase the question. Let me rephrase. Sorry, I'm butting you in. Let me rephrase the question. Why it is important, I'll tell you. Why it is actually very important, a question. Now, because of this COVID thing, now you know for sure, and I know for sure, that teachers are today doing something which I call, they're walking the path out of their skin. A lot of them have graduated from being someone who was doing the email to a Microsoft team or a Zoom for that matter. I think they've done a brilliant job in terms of scaling up themselves. Absolutely no doubt about it. But I personally feel going forward, given this looks like a trend in a way or a norm, I feel they will, and I've been doing, in fact, under IPN, we've been doing these master classes, and I'm sharing this very generalized observation with you. When I look at them, the teachers, if I may say, I really sympathize for them. And I really believe that they need hand-holding, which means they need to be trained. So what I personally feel is, because money will become a constraint here, every school leader, if he has 100 rupee in his table, I personally believe he'll be very, very, I mean, narrowly looking down at where do I cut corners on. So I personally feel they should not be cutting corners on the training and development aspect. Hence, I ask you this question that if they have to do a budgeting around it, why a percentage or how much of an impact? Because that will create an impact, right? So that's why, which is why this question largely to you.
Yeah, Gaurav, I got your point. So
Right.
two things, one, all of us in school management and leadership roles, we must understand the best investment now will be the investment in your human resource.
Absolutely.
Fine. If we are able to, like scale them up and work on their capacity building,
Correct.
half of our worries and anxieties will go off.
Correct.
Fine.
I'm with
Number
you.
two, I mean, as I always say that, tell all the schools, principals and, managements that now is the time more than ever before where you have to digitize or perish.
Correct.
So we know that it's going to be survival of the fittest.
Absolutely.
So I will say the maximum we can spare, not only in terms of money, in terms of time and effort on the teachers' training, this will be an investment which will come back to you. Okay. I mean, if you're spending lakhs of rupees on training of your teachers, it will come back to you as another value addition to your school. Okay. I mean, the better quality education your teachers will provide, the more reputation and, in terms of whatever aspect you are looking for. So this is not an expenditure, it's an investment. Correct. Right? The more we are able to invest in our teachers, and for that, amongst other areas, I think technology is one component. And I must salute all the teachers. I must express my gratitude to all of them from the core of my heart. To all the principals, teachers, I mean, they are almost 250 million school-going students in India, and we have 1.46 million schools in India. And out of 1.46 million schools, almost 25% are private independent schools. Correct. Which account for almost 40% student population of the entire country. Absolutely. So if this pandemic has struck us, and in this lockdown period, had the teachers not risen to the occasion, I mean, had they not controlled, trained and educated that 34 crore student population of India, what would have happened? Oh, absolutely. I mean, so they are like COVID warriors, and we owe a lot to them, and we need to give them back in whatever best aspect. So not only in terms of percentage, I think whatever best from school to school we can afford to spare funds on their training, time, effort, it will be worthwhile, I can tell you.
चलिए, तो एक बात स्टैब्लिश होती है कि भाई हमारे टीचरों को ट्रेन तो आपने जैसा बोल ही दिया. I think you mentioned it very aptly that we'll have to, it should be seen as an investment, not as an expense for that matter. Got your point. Fair. My last question, and then we dive into Q&A, because I think we have a lot of questions which are queuing up. So this is a question which is coming to everyone, which is, what will be the right time to start the school, number one? And being a CEO of a dozen schools, if I may say, which is you running under DCM, my first part of the question is, when do you intend largely, and in what form do you intend? So are you saying the entire school comes in? What is your take on it for that matter? Yeah.
So Gaurav, I'll tell you that I'm part of a think tank which is going to recommend to the Chief Minister on all these aspects. However, if I talk about the entire country, the scenario of COVID positive cases and this the kind of damage which it has done varies from state to state and within the state from place to place. Correct.
I'm with you. Right? Yes.
So I think since education in a country and place and it's a state subject, so all the states might not take the same decision unless it comes from the Ministry of Home Affairs. So like the Andhra Chief Minister has already announced that they'll start the school from 3rd August. So like Haryana Minister has given a different statement. The Maharashtra Minister, 2 days back, he gave a different statement. So depending upon that, how the things unfold in next couple of months, because what the senior doctors and people who are very closely associated with the controlling of this corona in India, they are saying that the worst is yet to arrive. In the sense that the June and July are very, very crucial. In the morning also I was talking to one very senior IS officer. So we cannot let the safeguard down. All right. And as WHO and ICMR has said that, the children, the kids, 10 years below and the senior citizens 65 years plus, they are very, very kind of sensitive to this entire disease. Fine. So we need to be very, very careful. There is no fixed date or timeline. I think nobody will know in India that when the schools will reopen. It all depends that, how the next 1 month goes, what kind of, positive cases are coming, and what kind of, maybe, if you are able to find out some vaccine or some solution in next, few weeks, which I'm very, very hopeful. So it all depends that how the things unfold, how we are able to control this corona thing in India. And second question that, as and when the schools reopen, so answer to that is that every school is different, is in a different location, is different size, is catering to different number of students, has different entry and exit points, has different infrastructure in place. So every school will have to design a standard operating procedure for the reopening of the schools, which is specially crafted and designed for the requirement of their specific school. Right from the transportation to the screening and sanitizing the children in the at the time of arrival, to their academic restructuring, to the increasing the number of hand washing stations, to layout of furniture within the classroom, to the kind of events, like we won't be able to have any events. So what kind of education model post-COVID? You will have a blended model, you will have a flipped model or a hybrid model. So right from the administrative to financial to academic, and another thing very important is in some areas, I will like to schools not to cut corners, especially in terms of healthcare, because we need more nurses and doctors in the school. If you have to, screen the children or the teachers or the support staff, while they are coming to the school, so you require more people from your medical department, MI room, with thermal temperatures and all that infrastructure, so that even if a single child or a teacher or any staff member who's unwell manages to come inside the school, it can be dangerous. It can be, lead to so many other complications. So how you set the entire system in place that, the children and all those people who are arriving inside the school, they are screened, and if found unwell, they are isolated immediately. So there has to be an isolation chamber just near the main gate of the school. So how they will, you can give a different color or a name to every block of your school, and how you do the marking on the floor, which you might have to have lot of queue managers in the school, so that children do not giggle and they mingle with each other. So then the role of a school counselor will be very important, because when you ask the children not to share their lunch, not to meet and greet, when you ask them not to give any jadoo ki jaffi to their friends, so they will ask why. Fine. So the children which are grown up, they might understand, but the children who are in formative years, we'll have to guide them, teach them, and education about the prevention of corona in each school will be must. Wearing masks, bringing their own sanitizers. So whole lot of work and effort. It's not going to be an easy job. So we might be thinking,
which means a lot of questions, which means
lot of effort is required, lot of thinking, lot of in terms of infrastructure, your processes, cross-utilizing your manpower and existing teachers. Like you might use sports teachers in the security duty. You might teach, use the teachers of creating and performing art in a housekeeping or arrival dispersal. Then you have to train them. So we have prepared, almost we have prepared 3 drafts of the standard operating procedures, which I'll be happy to share with all of you.
Sure. I think everyone would love to have it. So thank you. I think this is good. This is, I think, this is precisely what we wanted to. We do have in fact, few plans to host these more specific SOP-driven sessions, largely because I know, this is a very broad statement to be made. There are a lot of question marks, if I may see. So what I personally feel, and I'm just sharing with you, and I'm sure you can concur to it. Right now, there is no hurry as such to be also made. I was getting few questions from the leaders. They said, Gauravji, we are getting into this action mode from 15th of June, 17th of June, or whatever time window. To which I really said, it is too early to right now really get into that mode right now. That, okay, which class, how, whatever for that matter. I know one has to plan. Certainly do your planning bit. But I personally feel you mentioned it right, that in your own context, in your own city, in your own state, you will have a very different requirement to be needed. So keep your eyes and ear open right now and keep planning, if I may say, right? So good. I think we'll take that up a little later. Someone may have a very specific question also. So Anuji, now I'll open up the house for Q&A, right? So I think we'll take up, and before we go there, I'll request all my leaders to please have a very pointed question. Obviously, you want to say good words about Anirudh, the way he spoke, all that. You can do that, but make it very crisp. Questions to be more important, and obviously, if we can restrict it to one question only. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I will be calling out the sequence of these questions. I've already got some show of hands as such. So, example, Nirali Dagli. Would you like to ask a question, ma'am? I can unmute you.
Yeah. No, actually, I had said hi and it was.
Acha, koi baat nahi. Never mind. Never. Poonam
So
ji.
well explained. So I think I don't have a question now.
Fantastic. No problem. Poonam ji, would you have a question, or you were also experimenting? No. Smita Sharma, will you have a question, or anyone has a question? Now you can have a thumbs up, right? Because I'm assuming these were all guys who were experimenting.
So Gaurav, meanwhile, while they're taking time, so I'd like to add 2-3 more points here. So right now, I think as and when it will be a conducive time to reopen the schools, we certainly have lot of directions and information from Ministry of Home Affairs as well as from the MHRD. So I believe they are also working on a contingency plan and a plan for the reopening of the schools. So we don't need to worry about. However, what I will like to recommend to everybody, when this sudden lockdown was imposed, a lot of them were not prepared for, switching over to virtual mode.
Okay.
And the teachers were not trained, the infrastructure system was not in place. So this is the time for all of us to start thinking about it. About our administrative processes, about the kind of training which will be required, the kind of equipment which will be required. If we have to do the fogging of the school, disinfecting the school at the end of every day, fine. So we'll have to bring in a lot of trained manpower and equipment also.
Correct.
And another thing is that we do not know that whether we'll be able to have the full schools, or we'll be opening the schools in a staggered fashion, or in an even odd manner, or in a morning evening shift. So there are a lot of combinations which can happen and which will eventually happen. So by that time, whatever, some of the countries, they've already opened schools. So some of the organizations like, QCI, NABET, ICMR, they've already released some documents related to the processes and systems to be followed at the time of reopening of the schools. Okay. So what I will suggest is, let's keep gathering the shades and parameters, the know-how from all the sources what we have, and keep applying it in context of our particular school in terms of human resource, housekeeping, security, transportation, technology, administrative, the academic restructuring, the respiratory etiquettes, the hand washing etiquettes. So there's a whole lot of work to be done. So let's set up a task force in all our schools, and it can be the entire task force for the entire process for reopening, or different task force for different areas of school operations. So
I think a good point. As I said, I think you made a good point. And in fact, as you mentioned the SOPU thing, I am actually getting now some queries that we'll like to have the SOP at your end as well, for that matter. So I'm sure your office can share that with us. Rajesh ji has a question. Rajesh ji, over to you. Dr. Rajesh.
Yes, sir. Sir, first of all, it's a great thing to know, and the way you have been dealing. My only question is that when we are starting for sanitization, and suppose if the case is caught in the school, what are the legal repercussions?
You see, Rajesh ji, thank you very much. But I'll tell you that thing can happen anywhere. Fine. So there is no kind of a mechanism to ensure that they'll, and how do you know the child has got infection in the school or at home? I mean, there's no mechanism to check that unless the thing has really flared up in the school. So let's keep our finger crossed. And what best we can do is that, let's set up a watertight compartment in terms of, have a very, very stringent systems and procedures in place so that at the first instance, there is no access possibility. And number two, another important thing, we can have an indemnity bond signed by all the parents. It can be signed online also, that whenever your children will be coming to the school, I mean, you'll be sending them at their own risk and responsibility. So if you are looking at it from the legal perspective, so in fact, you can get an indemnity bond signed from all the teachers also. So that, I mean, the institution does not come under any kind of a legal issue. So, and one thing is that ensure you have the stringent systems and policies in place. Another time, in terms of the legal perspective, you can get an indemnity bond signed. So I think that is what best we can do.
Right. Because sir, sorry, Gauravji, because in case of POXO also many principals and management were in trouble. So that's why my point was.
So you see,
very valid point. Valid question.
Altogether a different chapter. POXO was something taking place in the school. Fine. So this corona, this thing, I mean, you can take infection from anywhere. I mean, you are taking all the precautions in the school. I mean, how do you know from where the child is coming from, or what is the mode of transportation of the child to the school? So while you can take all the precautions in your school premises for the school campus, at the most what you can do, because we'll have to open the schools. I mean, we will be like between devil and the deep sea. You cannot say I will not open the school. When the time comes, you'll have to open the school and you will have to take some calculated risk. So ensure that you have all the documents signed and all the formalities in place before allowing the children to the school. That is the only remedy.
No, in fact, you raised a very good point. I think this time round, one has to be a little proactive, not only just the indemnity form. Please ensure that you have a very sound legal guy helping you out with this, because this can go, and I was sharing with someone that example, you have a 500 kid school, you have actually 500 ways of getting it wrong, because everyone is very, very different, coming from a different background. It can actually go wrong at any place, any time for that matter, right? And eventually it can fall on you for that matter. So we'll have to be very circumspect as well.
We'll have lot of responsibility on our shoulders.
Yes,
we have to ensure that schools, they do not end up becoming a secondary point of infection at any point of time.
Absolutely.
So all the principals, all the school managements, so let's get our act together right now. Let's dive deep into all these systems and processes.
As much as
that
planning,
kind of, procedures in the school. So if we can't, like have a mechanism to say that nothing will happen. But in terms of prevention, we can take as much care as we can.
No, very good, very good. Next question, anyone? So I have, is Smita Sharma having question? Miss Smita Sharma?
No, I don't have one.
Perfectly okay. I think you were trying to experiment. Farhad,
yeah.
Farhad ji, आपके पास है by any chance any question? Or you were also experimenting?
So, Gaurav, what I'd like to tell all the principals and all the
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Farhad ji, boliye.
Yes,
Farhad
good
ji.
afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for your elaborated explanation. My question is already answered because my question was something related what Dr. Rajesh has asked about. But one thing that came to my mind is, when we talk about education excellence or in education or quality in education, so basically the principal is responsible. What management generally feels that the principal should be multitasking. Like, he should know the academics well, he should know how the advertisements have to be done, she or she should know how the photographs have to be taken, etc., etc. Please suggest something. Do you want to suggest something for us so that we can improvise?
Yes, you are absolutely right, ma'am. So what I said initially little while ago was a principal has to manage as many as 5 departments in the school. But how we are managing, we have a professional team and a person for virtually everything and anything happening in the school. The school administration is a parallel process where you have a person of the rank of general manager, or we have separate VP admins. The VP admins are looking to all issues concerning transport, security, substaff, housekeeping, events. So there is a separate graphic designing team. There is a separate social media and digital marketing team.
Right.
So while the principal has to be the one person who's on the top of this pyramid, so you need to set up various channels, various departments, and I'll be happy to share. We have worked so much on like in administration we have 11 departments, from estate to security to transport to housekeeping to communication to HR. So for everything there's a specialized person taking care of it. Yes, I mean you can assign some kind of a multitasking to the people. However, all the schools, I mean it's an era of specialization, as I said. So I mean you can be jack of all, but you have to be master of few.
Yes.
Right? So unless the principals are provided with the right kind of team, the right kind of human resource, the right kind of equipment, we can't expect the principals to get all the guns blazing. So there has to be a very well defined administrative setup in the school with parallel verticals for activities, events, administration, academics. So we have set up a very, very strong the entire grid, what I'll say, the entire ecosystem where everybody knows the profiles, the key responsibility areas of everybody is defined, and whom to ask for what. Fine. So I think
फरज जी आपका क्वेश्चन अगर मैं एक बार से रिफ्रेश करूं आपके लिए, आपका क्वेश्चन मेरे ख्याल से ये भी है कि क्या प्रिंसिपल के माथे ये सब पढ़ना चाहिए क्या? Are these all responsibilities?
There should be a lesson either to me to upgrade myself, or the management should learn a lesson.
हाँ, so I think आपने थोड़ा डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन नहीं किया, तो मैंने आपके बेहाफ पे डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन कर दिया. अनिरुद्ध जी क्वेश्चन ये है.
There is a difference, in the sense that as a principal is the head of any institution.
Correct.
As a principal, you can't escape any kind of responsibility in the school. Number one, right? So number two, it is not highly possible for any principal to look into every area all the time.
Correct.
Right? So you need to have a lot of structured approach, various compartments, various departments. And another thing, which I suggest to the principals is that, at times what we do, we give responsibility and we keep the authority with us. Right? For certain departments, certain areas, you have to give the total authority and keep the responsibility with you. That don't worry, you manage it in totality. If anything goes wrong, I will take the responsibility. So if you are not passing on the authority to others, you are not decentralizing your office, then naturally everything will, the buck will stop at your table only.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
And just to add to it, I think what is a very important point which Mr. Gupta has said is actually, as a leader, please start, obviously processes are there, start delegating in a very big way. In a very big way, but after creating a process, start delegating, because obviously otherwise you'll get overburdened. I understand sometimes it is about a school which has less teachers, less students, so you're running up like a startup school, then you have to multitask many a times, right? So it's very, very tricky also.
There are a lot of tools available with the principal these days. While you have your own school ERP, I think I will strongly suggest you can use a lot of Google Sheets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you are assigning the work online, even sitting at your home, you can assign the work to a particular person, and who has done what, I mean, during the course of the day, their work logs, what are the pendencies, what are the important tasks for the next day. So all these things can be monitored just using the
real-time situation, very, very real-time. In fact, Farhad ji, since आपने question किया है, I'm sure आपको ऐसी कोई problem आ रही होगी, so you can very well, not only just to me, I think हम लोग आपको इसमें help कर सकते हैं, don't worry. In terms of streamlining your school process for that.
Thank you so much.
चलिए, Dr. Pragya Upadhyay, do you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Like whatever sir said, Anirudh sir has shared, and it's very appreciable that we should get the bond signed
Mm-hmm.
by the parents.
Correct.
So many times it happens that the parents object because they think as if the private schools are sharing it on their own basis.
Mm-hmm.
So my suggestion, a little suggestion is that we should go very loud and clear that when the government is also coming up with the policies, then they should also introduce this as one of the policy that every school should get the bond signed by the parents whenever they are taking, whenever the schools are reopening.
Dr. Pragya, one thing I'll tell you, the government will never come to your rescue. You have to fend for your own self. Number two, what you can do is like you have sahodiyas in your various towns and places, or you have school associations. So rather than going it solo, you can all sit together, the principals in a particular cluster, and you can all formulate a joint strategy. Fine. Secondly, there always be a bunch of people in your school who are kind of anti-establishment. Fine. Whatever you do, and you know, मैं generally कभी बोलता हूँ, मैं कहता हूँ अगर आप सोने के भी बन जाओगे, तो they will say नहीं ये तो पीतल ही है. Fine. So there will always be a kind of this needle of suspicion being pointed out towards you all the time. But how well you manage, how strongly you communicate, and sometimes you have to put your foot down. Okay, look, if you want us to run the school, this is a part of our standard operating procedure. You have to do that, and you can get it signed online. They don't need to come to the school to do that.
No, that's absolutely right, sir. Right, sir. And sir, besides this, about the syllabus, like we have been covering the syllabus online for last 2 months, that is April onwards. And whenever the schools will reopen, I think we will be reaching maybe covering up the half-yearly syllabus.
Yes.
So that way, if we talk about 10th and 12th, and if we talk about rest of the school, so what should be the strategy?
Thing is that you know the CBSE, ICSE, MHRD, NCRT, they're all working on that. I'm sure they're going to send you. I think already it has been sent also. But very soon the syllabi is going to be revised for this particular session. Number one. So number two, I mean, every school, and you will have to increase your working hours. You'll have to work on Saturdays, Sundays, weekends. So if the syllabi is not reduced, fine. So I think we'll have no other choice but to stretch ourselves. And whatever classes online or in a virtual mode happening now, just ensure that you are teaching the children very effectively. You do not have to revise it. So there can be a lot of assessments by having a mid class quizzes also, or conducting some informal assessment through Google Forms or some formal assessments. Just ensure that whatever we're doing right now, we are doing it right and in the most effective manner. Because if we have to repeat all these things again, then it'll be tough.
Very tough.
So I'm sure that all these examining bodies and all these people, the authorities, they come out with the revised curriculum and the revised syllabi. And on the other hand, we have to increase our bandwidth also. We'll have to stretch ourselves. And what we can do right now is to ensure that whatever is being delivered is, we are doing an assessment. And I mean, we do not have to repeat this entire thing, again when the school reopen.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pragya. Rama, you have a question, Ms. Rama?
Yes, Gaurav, actually, almost all the questions are already addressed.
Okay, Rashna Agarwal.
I would like Dr. Anirudh to throw light on the thing that there are certain low budget schools, how they should go and plan the things for the future.
Yeah, so that's very important point. So in terms of infrastructure, like what we have done, we have worked on the quantity of the sanitizing material what we will require. Fine. So we have started producing the face mask, disinfecting material, which is hyposodium chloride or whatever it is. We've started producing it in-house. It is not a very cumbersome. You don't need any equipment for it. Fine.
Right.
So as per your requirement, as per the resources available to you, like in terms of online education, there's so much of open educational resources available. And for teaching, you know, right from using a simple WhatsApp to Zoom to Microsoft to Google, there are all kinds of platforms available. So I think, you know, you can create, you can, you know, like have your own, you know, ideas and creativity into the system. And it's not tough, you know, you can just do extensive search. Even I'll tell you that we have started manufacturing the foot operated sanitizing machines in our schools. Fine. So that, I mean, the moment the child comes, they just have to press it from the foot and they get the water as well as soap and they wash their hands. So we are working on kind of an assembly line mechanism that बच्चा इधर आएगा, ऐसे जाएगा, right जाएगा, ये लोग left जाएंगे. The people who are going left, they have their separate hand washing stations. Those who are going right, and you know, I mean, worst come worst, if you have nothing, you know, I think just a bucket of water and you know, few other arrangement and you know, separate soap cases. So you can work out on this process in a very low cost, and you can, you know, like I think sky's the limit. There are so many companies which have started manufacturing such equipment and they are selling it to the schools at a very exorbitant cost these days.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Rashna Agarwal, your question, ma'am.
Yes. So my question is, it may sound to be little off the cuff question, but I was listening to each and every word that you have so beautifully spoken. But the grassroots problem which I'm pondering over is that we are standing at a cusp right now where we can't probably avoid all such grassroots questions like, you know, the parents are not in a position to pay. The school will grow class by class. There are a gamut of precautions that we are supposed to be taking as you have been guiding us. The fees are not being paid. The school classes are increasing. You would require the staff. You'll have your share of investment. I mean, how do we, what is your suggestion to equip the principal? I'm sure all of us will agree with me.
Yeah.
You know,
so Rachna ji, I got your point. So I will just, you know, suggest you two things.
I mean, how to bring them to walk the talk kind of a thing.
Yes.
As initially you started out with fancy buildings and actually running the school and actually coming out to be educational institution. So I feel there's a kind of mismatch in most of the institutions. So how would you equip all of us into getting them to walk the talk level?
Yeah. So,
Good question.
I have 3-4 points to mention in regard to that. Number one, you know, I think the communication is the sense and the key to sort out this problem. Whatever good work you are doing, please reach out to all the parents and keep feeding them with the information, keep telling them, you know, the kind of effort teachers are doing in educating their wards, and, you know, try to build an environment of mutual trust and faith. Number one. Number two, I mean, you know, you have to look into your expenditure. I mean, as I said, that do not cut corners in terms of safety and, you know, preventive aspects. But if you have any renovation plan, you are extending something, you are procuring something. So you have to review all the areas, you know, like I'll give you a very small example. In one of our schools, we had, you know, 146 SIM cards. For every SIM card, we were shelling out almost 400-500 rupees per month. So we realized that we do not need so many telephones, you know, which we had given to our staff and teachers. So we cut down it to almost half of it. So I think, you know, a penny saved is a penny earned. That has to be the guiding force for the schools in these times. So you have to review all your expenditure. Then you have to, if you have taken loans or you have some, you know, like sundry creditors, you have to talk to all of them. You have to talk to your banks, the financial institutions, the people whom you owe the money. So they can either make installments or they can, you know, like give you some rebates or discounts on the interest part. Number two. Number three, you know, your management can approach to your alumni or some people, you know, who are providing CSR funding, or if there's some kind of funding available or kind of a soft loan available, which your school can obtain for, you know, sustaining this time and for ensuring the continuous running of your operations. Next point, you know, regarding the fees and all, every state has come out with a different formula. Some states say that you can take only tuition fee. Some states say that you can increase, you cannot increase, you know. So every state, I do not know that from one state to another, how the entire, you know, scenario changes, you know, just for crossing the border. that the policies, the acts, the notification are different from state to state. So you cannot bypass those obligations and those notifications, whatever your district authorities or the state government have announced. So keeping in view that, you have to reach out to the parents. You have to tell them, look, I mean, your child is with us and we are taking care of your child. We are trying to provide the best kind of education. So kindly please cooperate with us. So those parents who are in a position to pay, so the teachers, the coordinators, they all know that, which parent has what kind of a background. So those who are in a position to pay, you can tell them that please pay. And some of the parents, those who have lost their jobs or those who have no businesses, I think we need to have a very, very compassionate view of that, because I think all the stakeholders have to sit together. We have to look into some genuine concerns of the parents also. The parents also must appreciate the kind of work the teachers and the schools have been doing. And I'll tell you another thing out of my experience. There are not many parents who are anti-establishment or who are having this kind of a mindset. So if you'll call few parents, you will tell them that please support us. You might send them some letter or some communication. I'm sure because they have to teach their children in your school for a long time. It's not a matter of these 2 or 3 months. So one, I mean the stronger communication, looking into your expenditures, reviewing all the expenditures, talking to your banks and financial institutions, trying to obtain some soft loans, and reaching out to the parents, keeping with provisions of the state government and the district administration, asking them, to please, those who can afford, they must pay. I mean, you can run little campaigns on that also. So that is, I think, what needs to be done at this point of time.
Thank you. Very elaborate answer, Gupta ji. Vishal Sa, your question? Vishal, you have a question?
Yeah, good evening, forum. In continuation of the previous question only, the problems which we are facing these days, running the online classes, parents, children, they have not purchased the course material. And when we are asking them to purchase it, resistance is found from their side. That in this time away, how can we purchase the books and all? Even we have given them online order facility also. But financial crisis, running the financial crisis, they are not able to purchase the books. So how can we overcome this problem?
You see, I think my answer will be the same. One thing we all must understand that this is not the time for us to force anything. I mean, only thing is we can, just create an environment where rather than, something being enforced, they think the necessity and the need for it themselves. And if some of them are actually not in a position to procure books, I think this is the time to showcase the other aspect of the schools, because the schools are doing great job. The principals are doing great job. So if you are able to reach out to few people who are in distress or who are in need, and you are able to provide some books from your side, or ask them to some download it from somewhere, I think 1 year is tough. This year is tough. So instead of swimming, we should just keep floating. We should not try to do anything out of the box or anything which might evoke some kind of a criticism. Fine. Because another thing which is very important, that if one school is doing anything hanky-panky, or one school goes on a different tangent, so it gets defaming for the entire segment. Fine. There's what happened in Gurgaon last year. Some incident happened in one particular school, and suddenly all the channels, all the newspapers, they had just one hot topic to debate. What about the security of children in the school? So we all have to be very, very cautious. Nobody should do anything which might trigger any unprecedented kind of a situation. So let's be very cautious. Only thing is, we can talk, we can communicate, we can just tell them that this is something which is important, and in case they are not willing, do not force them. Look out for some other options. I think we all need to give some space to each other. Fine. And I think the mutual the mutual cooperation and trust amidst all stakeholders is the only way forward.
Running to that only, we have found a solution that we are giving the screenshots of the pages when while teaching,
That can
and
be,
we have asked them to take a photocopy of the few pages if they are not able to.
that can be done. Yeah.
Okay, you don't have an your name is Galaxy Note 8. I'm so sorry, but then you have raised the hand, so I'm skipping you. I'm going to Alok. Last two questions, and then we thank Dr. Anirudh and Frank. Alok, Mr. Alok, I'm unmuting you.
Hello.
Yeah, Alok ji.
Yeah, it was a nice session listening to both of you. I would like to ask one question related to academics.
Please go ahead.
I'm a bit of old school. I believe education's primary business is to build the character of the learner. So in that regard, since it is a chain of schools, how do you ensure that children develop the right kind of attitude, right kind of character during this pandemic challenges that has been thrown to all of us?
Okay, so you see, I've been saying this thing in most of the forums where I've been talking. We all need to understand, what is schooling all about? What is schooling and what education is? Fine. So I believe that whatever is taught to the child in terms of subject and curriculum knowledge in the school from say kindergarten to grade 12. So in terms of subjects, Hindi, English, math, science, whatever we are teaching the child in the school, in terms of the curriculum and in terms of subject knowledge, at the end of grade 12, you subtract it, if you minus it from the child's personality, the entire curriculum knowledge, whatever is left with the child is what education is. Fine. So every school has to make a lot of efforts, in terms of life skills, in terms of these corona days. I think it's very important for the school to guide the students and the teachers to build up their immunity. I mean, if we have a strong immunity, no corona can touch us. So how we can, improve on our immunity and our well-being, our physical, mental endurance. I think these are some of the areas the schools have to really work on. So that, I mean, it's a very happy transition from these challenging times to the new normal, what we say. Secondly, like in our schools, we have worked on various, ways and measures to, like generally, if I talk about the good old days, the first chapter of moral education or the values which was given to the child was through that Nani or Dadi ki kahaniyan. Fine. So which are missing nowadays. So everything is fallen back on the schools. So how we are able to imbibe these values in the children when we have, entire information and all kinds of material available at the click of a mouse. Fine. So it's not something that, we have one solution. So life skills are different, nutrition, the immunity is different aspect, the moral, the character building is different aspect. So we have to work on so many, like we have a lot of movies which are shown to the students, and every movie has some kind of a moral story. So after watching that movie, because अगर हम बच्चों को moral science पढ़ाना शुरू करते हैं, they develop a bad taste for it. So we have to put all these moral values into them in a manner which they do not hate. Fine. So through movies, through certain events, certain activities, I think there are a lot of ways that we can in this time of fast evolving globalized society. So this is one area where all the schools must work. Other than imparting them education, how to build up their character, how they can imbibe the right kind of values in them, how they can respect their grandparents, their parents, So we are doing a lot of community, outreach programs, like the children are regularly going to the blind home, they are going to the orphanages, they are going regularly to the slum areas. I mean, this is also all before COVID. So we were exposing them to some real life situations where they could understand that how fortunate they are. They are studying in a good school. They are having proper food. Their parents are spending on them. So, I mean, there are so many areas, where you can work in this particular aspect.
Okay, last two questions, and we will. Pratima, you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just repeating how you have to reach out to me. Please understand, on my screen, I can see more than 136 people right now. So I cannot see you doing anything apart from either showing your hand on the participant side, or I've asked you to put up a reaction, right? This is the way I have nodded to you, right? So I can see Pratima's, Pratima, you will ask the question next. Dr. Vinita, you would like to ask a question? And then Vasudha, I can see Vasudha's. Anju Mehta, you have a question by any chance?
Yes, sir. Sir, can I ask a question?
Hold on. Anju, you have a question? But you're not audible to us. Anju, you're not audible.
I have to leave by 5:30.
Yeah, this is the, no, we'll take two questions and we'll wind, don't worry. Yeah, we'll take up these two questions. See guys, we have only 8 minutes exactly. So I'm giving it to Pratima and Vasudha. Okay. And Anju, your voice is not audible.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to ask one question to Anirudh, sir. As he told that we need not revise the things that we have done, but to very precisely say that only 60 to 70% students responded to us in these virtual classes right now, and we don't know further till when we will have to continue with these virtual classes. To how to reach to these 30 to 40% students now, because they are in a they are having certain problems.
I got your point. So what we can do, I mean, since we have already 60-70% of the students who are attending these online classes, so one idea is to make those classes effective. I'm not saying that we should not have revision. We might have to have revision, but that revision should not take a lot of time if these classes are effective. Number two, the children, who are not participating in these online classes, we'll have to have some extra classes for them in the evening or during the weekends, so that the time of the other students, those who have attended the online classes, is not wasted, or it's not a repetition for them. So depending upon, the quantum of the students attending the online classes, I think you'll have to make some academic planner, which is specific to your school, and you might have to have some extra classes for the students who have not attended, and you'll have to have a quick revision plan for the students, those who are attending, so that you can move on.
But sir, just I wanted to ask that if these virtual classes continue for more time, and like this 30 to 40% students are not responding due to lack of gadgets or some network issues or something like that, so how to reach to these 30 to 40% students?
Yeah, so I think, every school is having a different formula for that. We are, calling all the parents one by one, and there is a Google sheet where the response of every parent is recorded, that why the child is not able to attend the classes. It is person and child to child. So we are trying to ascertain what is the problem. Like, one problem is there are 3 kids in the family and there is only one equipment. So how do we manage that? And the classes are going simultaneously. So we thought of having a backup evening classes and sending the recorded video of the classes which is happening to the students and the parents, so that after one child completes his or her lesson, the other child can see at least the recorded version of the teaching. So all these things, there are no kind of specific rules or specific solutions for that, depending upon that why those children are not attending. They do not want to attend, or they are not able to attend due to certain reason, and what all categories they fall into. So you have to, come up with the solutions specific to those problems, and you have to kind of work out on your own school specific solutions. And I think now since most of the schools offices have started functioning, you can send the messages to the parents. If they have any problem, they can come to the school. The teachers can call the parents home. We have also started a toll-free number, which we have circulated to all the parents. Any kind of problem any parent have, they can just call us on the toll-free number. So our backup team reverts back to the solution to them. So I think we need to work out on whatever solutions a particular school can offer in this regard.
Thank you.
Okay, there are a few questions which I'm unable to take. I'm calling out their names because their device names are displaying, not their real name. Galaxy Note 8, sorry, won't be able to take your question. Anju, I have already told you your voice is not audible, and someone has a very 1FFB24P4. That is an interesting name, so I cannot really ask you to take up a question. Right, so next question comes to Vasudha. This is the final question, Anirudhji. Before I get into that question, I would like to thank you on behalf of the entire IPN family, everyone who attended it. We almost have still around 127 participants. They have all stayed back purely because I think you've been wonderful in terms of your answering. And obviously, I will look forward to host you some other time. Before we really wind it up, Vasudha, your final question, and then we'll let Mr. Anirudh take leave from us. Okay? Thank you. Vasudha, you're there?
Am I audible?
Yeah. Go ahead quickly.
First of all, thanks a lot, Dr. Gupta, for such an interesting and rich session that you've given. Gaurav, thanks a lot too. Two questions I have. One, practically when earlier teachers have been working for say 8 hours, now practically their work hours have increased from 8 to maybe 20. So they are involved with a lot of things that they are doing at home, and all the time, it is a 20 hours job that they are doing. So, sir, I would like to ask you, by your rich experience, how can we keep them, or the ways to keep them motivated enough for the future challenges? So they are motivated enough and encouraged enough to meet out the future challenges with same interest and same dedication.
Yeah, so Vasudha, I think extremely important for all of us. You'll be happy to know that in the last month or so, I have myself interacted one-on-one with more than 500 teachers. So it's very important for all the people in the leadership roles to connect with the teachers, to thank them, to send some letters, some emails of gratitude to them, and tell them that, how appreciative we are, about the kind of work they have done in the last, 2 months. So very important. Another thing is that, while we thank them, while we reach out to them, we talk to them, we write letters to them. Another thing is that we need to ensure their well-being. So you need to ask them about their family, that how's your kids doing, how's your parents doing. There has to be personal touch, fine. And if any one of them, they require your help in any manner whatsoever, let's try to reach out to them and help them. Some of them might have some medical exigency, or some of them need some extra financial support. Some of our teachers were not able to afford laptops. So we made it a point that we procure laptops and we send them across to their homes. We even send the whiteboards and markers to some teachers, right? And regarding our support staff, what we have done, we have, in addition to paying their salaries to all our security people, housekeeping staff, we even provided them dry rations, fine. We even provided them, and our people, our team went to the respective homes with a flower, and we gave them all these stuff. So I think these small gestures, they will go a long way in motivating our people, and that's the best what we can do.
Right. So one more question I have. So in the times when we are going to open up with the schools soon, as the Ministry of HRD has recently informed, the classes 8th to 12th will be opened up. And so do you think that before that, prior to that, when that time comes when the schools will be reopened, we should have a dry run or a drill sort of a thing for at least a week's time,
Yes.
so that we may be able to keep the things.
Like, some of our schools are examination centers,
Right.
and they might be having some students who are coming to there even to take their exams. So we have to have all these mock drills, we have to have dry runs. And another thing is that I have suggested the schools to make some videos or PPTs of, what arrangements you are doing in your school to receive the children back and send it across to the parents, so that we are able to diminish their fears, we are able to take care of their anxieties and concerns. So the mock drills, the dry runs are extremely vital and important. And let's put ourselves into those positions before allowing the children to come back to the school. And you can even invite some of the parents before actually the school resumes, that why don't you come and have a visit of the campus and see what all arrangements are in place, and if you have any suggestions, please feel free to get back to us. So I think this approach will be kind of very useful for all of us.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much for your extremely positive answers and really workable solutions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Anirudh. Pleasure, as I said, pleasure is all ours largely, and we possibly look forward to have you some other time as well. But for now, you've been a wonderful, if I may say, expert with us. You did spend a good quality 2 hours with us, if I may say. And thank you everyone who were able to join us. And in fact, you stayed back for so long. So this cannot be made possible without you.
All of you. Thank you all the lovely audience and all the dynamic school leaders which have joined us here today. Thank you all. Stay blessed, stay safe, and stay happy. And thank you again for doing such a wonderful work all of you are doing. And thank you, Gaurav. I was happy to be a part of your show and share my thoughts with the entire.
No. It was our pleasure, completely our pleasure. Thank you very much. And as I said, thank you, everyone. Take care. Hope to see you soon. Bye bye.